been talking to him now for maybe 3 or 4 months. He shared his testimony at R3. We went together on Monday, and that was a great time. They were doing some celebrations there. And I asked him if he would be willing to share his testimony here in our men's group, and he said yes. So very grateful for him. He's a wonderful man. He's married, has a couple of kiddos, and he just has a desire to see men be free from pornography, and has a wonderful ministry. And no further ado, please help me welcome Cameron to the stage.
Good morning, guys. Good morning. Fun fact, eFree was the first church that I attended when I moved to Kearney. When I ended up in this little tiny town, you guys think it's big, I think it's tiny. I grew up in the Denver area, 34 years old now, moved here when I was about 22, 23. Didn't know anything about church, and somehow I got plugged in here. But let me back up. So where my story begins when I first developed a secret. Started when I was in grade school. A secret that would require a confession later on, and that was pornography. My brother showed me my first adult content back in the days when computers used to load an image like line by line. And that was my first encounter of it. And then it evolved into finding my brother's stash under his dresser. I stole his stash. He probably thought our mother found it and threw it away, but that was me. And then he got another magazine. I stole that one. I kept stealing everything he had, and we never had a discussion. I never had a discussion with anyone in my family. And I wouldn't have the talk until I was about 16, 17, and the talk consisted of just keep it in your pants. And that was about as far as that went. And then it escalated from, an image on the computer to magazines to then a computer that was downstairs, unsupervised. And somehow I wasn't supposed to know the password, but I figured it out. And one day, just kind of a funny story, I go on there and I start consuming pornography. And then I hear something upstairs, so I quickly try to exit out everything, cancel. Nothing's working, so I just turn the computer off. And I was printing images out at the same time, so the printer stopped. I take what was on the printer and I go hide. Who is to get on the computer next, and what happens when a printer doesn't finish its print job? My stepdad turns on the printer, the computer, and it's printing out images of adult content. So of course, all of us boys, we got a talking to. But me, being the baby, I get away with a lot of things. But I said, well, I don't know the password. It couldn't have been me. And they're like, well, you're right. Okay, you're free to go. Boom, I was good, I was safe. Didn't have to have any hard conversations. So in high school, then I got my own laptop, and that's when things kind of went from 20 to 60. Because it opened up just a whole new can of worms. I got more consumed in it. I spent more time in it. If I wasn't in practice, if I wasn't in hanging out with friends, I was consuming this stuff. And I didn't realize it at the time. I never had any sort of, oh, this is wrong kind of feeling. I was just, man, this feels good. I'm going to keep doing it. I had zero sense of this is wrong. Because while I would have called myself a Christian at that early age, I didn't practice it. We went to church occasionally. I was baptized, but I had no idea what that meant. And like Cairo was saying earlier, my idea of confession was a Catholic thing. Well, I'm not Catholic, so I'm good. I don't have to do that. I'm not going to talk to a guy through the wall. I had the exact same view of confession. So fast forward, I end up in this tiny town, Kearney, and yes, there was a woman involved, my now wife. I moved here to be closer to her. She was living just south of Lincoln at the time. But I didn't know a soul when I moved here. So you can imagine somebody with this kind of addiction, and yes, I would say it was a hard addiction of pornography while moving here, and it got way worse. I had way too much time. To when I was consuming more and more. I was ending up in weird places. I was seeing a bunch of stuff. And then it was here in Kearney that I first had the realization of, okay, this is affecting me. It is affecting my time. I'm not wanting to be involved in this anymore. And somehow, some way, I started to come to church here by myself. I don't know why, I don't know what led me here, but I ended up here. And I got plugged into a Bible study group. And I've never been a part of a Bible study group. I didn't know what they consisted of. I didn't know if these were Bible thumpers. I had no experience. I just somehow ended up in a group. And then it was then that I saw for the first time, I'd never seen this, such a foreign concept, confession to one another. Never have I seen it. I would have gone to the grave with my secret. Just to give you an example, in high school, in the locker room, when guys are talking about, things inappropriate, they were talking about pornography one time and masturbating. And I took it to the grave and said, I don't even know how to do that, guys. But you guys are weird for doing that. Like, I would have lied, I would have cheated, I would have done anything to avoid having to tell people that I had this addiction. Not out of a sign of weakness, but a sign of embarrassment. That's what I felt. It was embarrassing that I would do this. And so when I was in this Bible study, who I'm still friends with these guys to this day, which is amazing, I would see them confess. And when I did, I'm like, why would they tell each other that? Who does this? But there was something attractive about it, because when they did confess, there was zero judgment, there was zero weird looks, zero shame, zero anything. People received it, and I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting, like what I grew up with, my friends to laugh at each other and point fingers. That was what I grew up with. And so I continued in this Bible study, and at the same time, while I'm going through my struggle, I did have the realization of, okay, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. I want to change. And there was a time when I placed my Bible and my laptop right next to each other. I said, okay, now's the time to choose. Which one are you going to choose? I had this go-getter attitude at this time. Of course, I chose the Bible, and I deleted everything on my computer. But like a dog returning to its vomit, probably less than 24 hours later, I was back on the computer. My motivation didn't last very long. But I at least had the mindset of, okay, I know where I'm going to go with this, and I'm going to keep trying. And this was hard for me because I didn't want to confess, and it was purely out of embarrassment. Like, if I tell these guys, they're always going to look at me weird. I have this image going. I was a very prideful person back then, still a little am, but I just didn't want them to view me any differently. So I didn't want to go to the extent of confessing just yet. I wanted to try on my own. But I kept failing, and I kept failing, until eventually I had enough of what I was wrapped up in. I was sick of it. I hated it. I was willing to do anything to get out of it. And so for the first time, I confessed to about 12 guys all at once. I did it via text because I was just that embarrassed. But nonetheless, all 12 of them received it with grace, received it with kindness. One of them is now my pastor. And he told me, he's like, Kim, even if you told me you didn't have this problem, I wouldn't believe you. He's like, most guys struggle with this. And he's like, and he was just incredible. So that made things really easy to want to change. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm going to change my life. I'm going to have so much time to do things now. I'm going to hang out with friends. I was on fire after I confessed. However, prior to that, through my online activity, I had posted illegal content, and as a result, I got arrested and I had to register as a sex offender. And so talk about being at the bottom of the food chain and thinking your life is over. I went from I can conquer and do anything to my life is over. It ended that quickly. But the interesting thing, and this church produces awesome people, guys, because the guys that I was involved with through that Bible study attended church here, and they didn't view me any differently. Now, they all wanted to know more details, which I gave them, so I had to confess to so many people. And prior to getting in trouble, and this wasn't planned, we actually were going through James in talking about confession. So I don't know if it was that. That verse, I'm an NIV guy. I don't know if you guys are ESV. Don't shun me. But I memorized that. That was one of the first verses that I ever memorized. And it was because I believed in the healing, because I saw it, I witnessed it for the first time. I wanted a piece of it. And so that was one of the very few verses that has made a huge impact on me. But none of them viewed me any differently. They wanted to know more details. But I had to go to jail for a few months. And in jail, for me in particular, I thought that was a huge blessing. I was removed from all the distractions. I went through my withdrawals. And then I figured out, man, I can actually think about things now. My mind was able to kind of, renew itself. I figured out that I had the ability to memorize scripture, like large portions of it. And because of that one verse in James, therefore confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. Because of that one verse, I memorized the whole book of James. That's how much I love James. And so going through jail, I learned more about my faith in that time than I did my entire life before. And it was only because of the guidance that I received in those that were actually living out their faith prior to going to jail. So once I got out, I had to explain myself to everyone, and I confessed to everybody. And you talk about throwing your chains off. For the first time in my life, I had zero secret, anything to hide. I mean, I could go back to the third grade and say I stole that piece of candy from Miss Adams. But other than that, zero secrets. And I felt so free. And it was only because of guys that were living out their faith. They were practicing what they preached. And these were college guys. Like, you would think that I would be learning from a mentor or older guys. No, these were college guys that were living out their faith in a way that want to change me. Because, like I said earlier, I would have called myself a Christian, but I definitely didn't practice it, didn't know what it was like. And so when I saw these guys, they made Christianity attractive. They made hard stuff not look easy, but doable, and I could see the results. And because of that, I was able to continue on the path that I was on. So I confessed prior to going to jail. Most people say, oh, you're just getting into this because you were in jail and you had nothing else better to do. Well, there was a lot of time in there, but I confessed prior to. I wanted to change prior to getting in trouble. And so at that time, though, I had zero hope. There was a piece that was there, but I had zero hope. Fast forward, I married the gal that I moved here for. I can't believe it. She probably felt sorry for me. She's like, you need somebody to love you. Have two beautiful kids, and we are all on fire for Christ. And we make it a habit in our household to confess things. Like, it is standard in our house to where if my son, or how about me, for example, if I do something wrong, I have to confess in front of my son to show him what it's like to confess, and for my wife to receive it, and vice versa. We still practice that to this day. And so, again, guys, I just want to say this church does produce awesome guys. And it's awesome that you guys are here, because if it wasn't for eFree, who knows where I'd be. I probably wouldn't be a Christian. I'd be one by name only, but I wouldn't have an intimate relationship with Christ. Because to show you where my faith was before that, if you were to ask me, do you have an intimate relationship with Christ? I only had one definition of intimate, and that was in a sexual manner. That's how far I was from knowing Christ. And so Thanks, guys, for listening. And I hope that you guys continue the trend that this church has of being examples to those in the community and to those in your family. So thank you, guys.